Hi everyone, my name's Anne Logan and this is the I've Read This.com YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today I am going to be reviewing a classic, Agatha Christie's The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. I rarely get the chance to read these classics, but I'm really excited that I finally picked this one up from my local library because I absolutely loved it. So if you haven't read an Agatha Christie book, you absolutely should. She is the most best-selling author in the world. She's only outsold by the Bible and Shakespeare. She has sold over 1 million books in English, over 1 billion books in English, and then another 1 billion books in 100 different languages. So there's a reason why she has sold so many books. Everything she writes is really, really entertaining, and this book was no different. This one is one of her more famous novels. It's a Miss Marple mystery. It was originally published in 1962, and I think we can kind of assume that the story takes place around that same time. It starts with the murder of a woman named Heather Babcock. She is at a party in St. Mary's Mead, which is Miss Marple's village. And this party is actually held at a famous Hollywood actress's house, Marina Gregg's. So this woman, Heather, drops dead from a poisoning, and it's eventually determined by the police that the poison was meant for this Hollywood actress, Marina. So while the police are sort of bumbling around, including Scotland Yard, they're trying to figure out who the murderer was. Miss Marple, who is an old woman, she's basically confined to her own house. She's doing her own sort of investigating, and she's doing that by talking to people who come visit her, who's talking to the women that work for her caregivers, and she's solving the mystery, and she eventually solves it herself. A reason that I really enjoyed this book is there's this wonderful mix of Hollywood glamour. We learn about Marina's life, what it's like to be an actress back then. But there's also this really humorous side to this book because St. Mary's Mead is this tiny little village where everyone knows everyone. Everyone's involved in your business. There's lots of gossip, and just the dialogue back and forth is really, really funny. Even Miss Marple herself is quite snarky, especially to the women that work for her. So that was something that I really liked about this book. I've got all my notes on the back here. What else did I want to say about this? Miss Marple is a really cool character, and I want to be Miss Marple. I'm sure a lot of other book lovers feel that way. She reminds me a lot of Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote, which is of course my favorite show. But Miss Marple's a little more direct, she's a little more nosy than Jessica Fletcher, but she's so much fun to read about. So honestly, whenever I sat down to read this book, I just had a big smile on my face because I loved reading it, I loved thinking about it. I read it really quickly, it's very short, but it's just such a good classic mystery, and I did not see the ending coming at all. It was a complete shock to me. I would have never guessed it, and honestly, I don't think any modern reader would potentially guess the ending to this novel, so highly, highly recommended for that reason. Now, I know that a lot of people who watch my YouTube videos of these kind of classic novels tend to be students who are working on their essays. So I wanted to make your life easier and talk about some of the themes that you could mention in your essay. I was an English lit major. I've been there. I know what it feels like. So major themes. One of them is this idea of progress and the beginnings of suburbs and the way that communities are formed. So as I said, this book takes place in the early 1960s, and Miss Marple is constantly remarking on the development, which is basically this new suburb that's sprung up in her village. And we also hear from some of the characters who are living in this development and what it's like to be in this place where they're actually sharing a wall and where your neighbors are kind of involved in your business. It's very interesting to hear characters from this time talk about this new way of living. So the idea of progress, how things are developing in this small community, that's something that runs throughout the novel. The Lady of Shalat that famous poem by Alfred Tennyson that is quoted at the beginning of the book, and there's a lot of Lady of Shalat imagery. Also, the role of the artist is another theme that runs throughout. So Marina Greggs is this really famous Hollywood actress. She she suffers from some mental illness, absolutely. But there's this idea that in the novel, Marina, as this famous actress, is treated a different way because she's an artist. She has these artistic skills. So the way that we treat artists in everyday life versus how we treat them on the screen. That's something else that you could talk about if you were writing an essay about this. And speaking of mental illness, self-medicating for mental illness is something that is talked about a lot in this book, because we're starting to enter that era where people are starting to self-prescribe medications for themselves, or they're asking their doctor for certain medications. And it's not the way that we talk about mental illness today, but they're talking about taking these pills to calm them down, to help with their anxieties. So that's another thing that's really explored in this book. So there's really this beginnings of society changing and the way that people deal with certain issues in their lives, the way that we're living and relating to our communities. So there's a real kind of push for progress in this book, and Miss Marple, of course, is not happy about any of it, but that's what makes her character so entertaining. So there you have it, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. I believe you can actually, I think there's a movie on this book as well. You could probably watch that, look out for it on YouTube or something like that. But I highly recommend this one, especially if you're not familiar with a lot of Agatha Christie's books, because this is a really easy to read one. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you're working on your essay, good luck. Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.